In a world marked by uncertainty and rapid change, Agenda 2030 emerges as a global plan for sustainability and progress. Yet behind this promise lie mysteries, hidden interests, and disturbing theories. Is this truly a solution to humanity's challenges, or a covert project of control? Governments and international organizations defend their goals, but critics warn of a future where freedom is increasingly restricted and power concentrated in invisible hands. In this video, we will explore the secrets behind Agenda 2030, from engineered food crises to digital cities that could become prisons. Prepare to question what once seemed certain. The truth may be darker than fiction. This is the hidden world of Agenda 2030, a plan to save or control the world. Agenda 2030 was introduced to the world in 2015 as a historic milestone, a global pact signed by 193 countries under the leadership of the United Nations, promising to eradicate poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. On paper, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are hailed as the ultimate solution to humanity's greatest problems. But behind the positive, universal language, a darker interpretation begins to emerge. Independent analysts point to ambiguous terms, vague concepts, and a global standardization that may conceal far more sinister intentions. Phrases like "leave no one behind" and "transform the world" are repeated like mantras. But what do they actually mean? Who, exactly, is defining this transformation? And what happens to those who refuse to comply? To conspiracy theorists, Agenda 2030 isn't a salvation plan, it's a control manual. A supranational project designed to reshape the world not through democratic choices, but through directives imposed by technocratic elites. This view is supported by real documents, available on the UN's own website, but rarely read in full. Terms like urban resilience, global governance, and public-private partnerships appear frequently, but what do they mean in practice? Who profits from these partnerships? And who loses local power as global decisions become the norm? What is presented as progress, according to these critics, may be just a new disguise for an old desire to control human behavior in the name of the greater good. There's something unsettling about the way Agenda 2030 is promoted. Almost all major corporations, central banks, powerful NGOs, and national governments publicly support it. Their communications, speeches, and campaigns are perfectly aligned, and that, in itself, raises red flags among skeptics. How can such an ambitious plan be accepted with so little resistance? Why are critical voices systematically silenced or ignored? Many suggest this uniform narrative points to something deeper, an undeclared agreement among global elites, forged far from the public eye. And when that single narrative becomes dominant, the real question is, what's being hidden behind it? Another strange detail is the symbolism embedded in UN materials. Occult researchers and independent analysts have noticed recurring visual and linguistic patterns, spirals, stylized eyes, triangles, and specific color schemes that don't seem accidental. Some claim these symbols carry esoteric meanings, understood only by an initiated few. The word agenda itself evokes the idea of a secret plan with defined steps and hidden phases. The goals are broken down into measurable targets, but few understand how they'll be enforced, by whom, and with what level of oversight. Is symbolic language being used to hide intentions in plain sight? The wording of the documents is also crucial. Words like inclusion, sustainability, and equity are repeated endlessly. At first glance, they seem unassailable, but language experts warn this vocabulary may serve as a rhetorical trap. Opposing any part of the agenda automatically places you against morally correct values. In other words, criticism becomes politically incorrect, and, eventually, possibly illegal. Could this be a veiled form of censorship? Is language being used not to clarify, but to obscure authoritarian motives behind a progressive facade? As Agenda 2030 moves forward, what becomes evident is an increasing centralization of decision-making into global institutions. National sovereignty appears to be dissolving, replaced by transnational committees and multilayered agreements. In this scenario, The average citizen is no longer a protagonist, but a number in a statistical target. And when standardization replaces diversity, control becomes inevitable. Those investigating these connections warn, the real goal may not be to save the planet, but to reshape it according to the interests of a select few. And that leads us deeper into the theory, because the next step in this plan may involve controlling what sustains us most: food. In the shadow of global sustainability goals, a darker theory begins to emerge, one where food scarcity isn't a tragic accident but a carefully engineered outcome. Across continents, vast areas of farmland are being quietly bought up by private investors, many connected to organizations promoting Agenda 2030. In parallel, fertile lands are being reclassified as protected zones, making farming illegal. Independent farmers are being crushed by a tidal wave of regulations, digital compliance systems, and unsustainable costs. As large agro-corporations rise, local producers disappear. This centralization of food production raises a disturbing question. Could hunger be the new tool of control? After all, history has shown, those who control food control people. And that grip is tightening with unsettling precision. In the Netherlands, farmers are rising in protest as the government pushes policies that would shut down their operations in the name of reducing nitrogen emissions. But behind the green rhetoric lies a pattern, a systematic effort to dismantle local agriculture. Across Canada, Ireland, and parts of the US, similar crackdowns are occurring. Under the guise of sustainability, authorities are stripping communities of their ability to grow food independently. The result is a slow but calculated collapse of traditional farming. Critics argue this isn't about the environment, it's about replacing food freedom with food dependency. And as farms fall, corporate supply chains grow stronger. It's a transition that feels less like progress and more like submission. Meanwhile, synthetic foods are being positioned as the solution: lab-grown meat, insect protein, and patented plant substitutes. Powerful global entities are investing billions into these industries, promoting them as sustainable and essential for the future. But what happens when natural food becomes obsolete, and our choices are limited to what these entities produce? The shift from soil to laboratory may be sold as innovation, but some see it as a trap. Once synthetic foods dominate, dietary autonomy vanishes. You'll eat what you're allowed when you're allowed. And in that future, nourishment becomes programmable, patented, and political. Underneath these surface changes is a rising digital infrastructure. Governments and corporations are rolling out systems to monitor every aspect of food production, from GPS-tracked livestock to blockchain-monitored seeds. The official narrative promotes efficiency, transparency, and safety. But the real result is surveillance. Small, independent farming becomes a liability under this system. Ancient techniques, heirloom seeds, and off-grid methods may soon be outlawed or erased. The food chain is becoming a data stream. And in this new ecosystem, freedom tastes like non-compliance, and non-compliance may become a crime. The most chilling development is the emergence of digital food passports and consumption limits based on carbon tracking. In the name of sustainability, your dietary choices could soon be governed by algorithms. What you eat, how much, and how often may depend on your behavior, your footprint, or even your social credit. It starts as a suggestion: eat less meat, try insects, reduce waste. But systems like these rarely stop at suggestions. Once the infrastructure is in place, restriction becomes enforcement. Supermarkets turn into control points. Hunger becomes conditional, and eating becomes an act of obedience. Agenda 2030 promotes noble goals like ending hunger and protecting the climate, but the execution tells a different story. If feeding the world means eliminating real food and replacing it with artificial, tightly regulated substitutes, what future are we really building? Is this transformation truly about saving the planet, or is it about reshaping society into one that's easier to monitor, restrict, and control? When your access to food is determined by systems you don't understand and can't challenge, the illusion of choice vanishes. And that brings us to the next layer of this agenda: the global networks profiting from this transformation, building an empire on fear and dependency. Each summer, California turns into a landscape of ash and devastation. Massive wildfires erupt with unnatural intensity, often in patterns that seem too precise to be coincidental. Entire neighborhoods are reduced to cinders while adjacent trees remain mysteriously untouched. For many, this contradiction has triggered a wave of suspicion. Could these fires be more than just natural disasters? Some believe they are evidence of a deeper manipulation, one that aligns perfectly with a global agenda. An agenda that seeks to reshape not only the urban layout but the natural world itself. Behind the smoke, there might be a plan burning quietly. One of the most discussed theories centers on directed energy weapons, or DWs. These are highly advanced military-grade tools capable of emitting concentrated energy to a precise location, invisible, instant, and devastating. Numerous videos online claim to show strange beams or flashes in the sky moments before a fire begins. Burned cars with melted aluminum next to unscathed foliage raise further questions. The irregular burn patterns and the destruction of specific zones lead some to speculate about targeted clearing. Was the goal destruction, or was it selective transformation of land for future development? And if so, who decides which areas vanish in flames? Then comes HIRP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, often blamed in conspiracy circles for manipulating weather. Though officially described as an ionospheric research project, its capabilities are shrouded in secrecy. Some claim HARP can trigger droughts, lightning storms, and even earthquakes. With California suffering increasingly severe droughts followed by explosive fire seasons, theorists argue that such precision suggests unnatural orchestration. If climate can be engineered, it becomes a weapon, and those who control it hold the power to destroy or reshape entire regions at will. This brings us to a darker interpretation, the notion that these disasters are not merely unfortunate consequences, but deliberate actions in line with a larger transformation plan. According to this view, the goal is geospatial cleansing, the strategic removal of existing structures and populations to pave the way for smart cities and ecozones dictated by Agenda 2030. Fires, in this context, become tools of forced displacement. In the aftermath, government agencies and corporate developers often move in swiftly with redevelopment plans. But are these rapid reconstructions a coincidence, or preparation long in the making? There is a chilling alignment between fire-affected zones and proposed future infrastructure maps. Reports have surfaced showing that areas devastated by fires align with pre-existing plans for sustainable urban zones. These coincidences are difficult to ignore for those following the money. Insurance companies refuse to pay claims, residents are forced to relocate, and soon after, contracts for smart development are awarded. It paints a disturbing picture: fires as catalysts for Agenda 2030 implementation. Are we witnessing disaster capitalism hidden behind smoke and ash? Whether caused by nature or by man, one thing is certain: the frequency and intensity of these fires are accelerating. And with every blaze, more land changes hands, more people are displaced, and more opportunities arise for a new kind of city to rise from the ashes. But if these events are truly orchestrated, what's next? Are we watching the first phase of a quiet war against traditional life? In the scorched earth left behind, something new is being built. And whatever it is, it wasn't born in the flames. It was planned before the first match was ever struck. They promise convenience, sustainability, and a better quality of life. The 15-minute city is marketed as a revolutionary urban model where everything, work, school, shopping, and recreation, is accessible within a short walk or bike ride. But behind the soft language of climate efficiency and localism, many see a far more sinister agenda. Proponents claim it's about reducing carbon emissions and traffic congestion. Critics warn it's a testbed for a tightly controlled society. If you can't leave your zone without permission, is it still a city? Or is it a cage? Pilot programs in cities like Oxford, Paris, and Melbourne have already triggered alarm. Surveillance cameras monitor traffic flow. Digital permits determine when and how often you can cross certain boundaries. Under the surface of smart urban planning lies the architecture of a digital leash. What begins as an effort to reduce urban sprawl soon morphs into a system of restrictions and penalties. The justification is always the same: climate change, safety, or health. But the outcome is consistent: less freedom, more control. Technology plays a crucial role in enforcing this new structure. License plate recognition, biometric checkpoints, and centralized data monitoring become the invisible bars of a high-tech prison. These aren't conspiracy theories, they're stated objectives in public planning documents. Digital IDs will track your movements. Social credit systems, already active in parts of China, are being quietly tested in the West. The city becomes a grid. You become a data point. And once the system is in place, opting out will no longer be an option. The idea of being confined to a zone may sound dystopian, but it's being normalized through convenience. If everything you need is nearby, why would you ever leave? That's the trap. Isolation becomes voluntary. Freedom becomes unnecessary. And those who question the system are branded as extremists or deniers. In this new paradigm, dissent is dangerous. Non-compliance isn't just frowned upon, it's tracked, logged, and punished. The line between safety and surveillance begins to blur. Supporters of the 15-minute city dismiss concerns as irrational fear-mongering. But history is full of examples where control was introduced under the guise of progress. Ghettos weren't always surrounded by walls. Sometimes, they were simply districts with beneficial restrictions. The same is happening now, only digital. You won't see fences, but your phone will know where you are. The software doesn't need to ask for your compliance. It will already have it. As the Agenda 2030 vision advances, these smart cities are not isolated experiments. They are blueprints. What we see in London or Barcelona today could be global by 2030. What begins as innovation ends as incarceration. And if movement is restricted, choices are managed, and behavior is scored, then what kind of life is being engineered? One built on sustainability, or one optimized for obedience? It begins with a promise: easier access to services, streamlined bureaucracy, and secure transactions. The digital ID is presented as a solution for a modern world. But behind the sleek interfaces and encrypted logins lies a powerful tool for surveillance. Once your identity, health, finances, and location are all linked to a single profile, autonomy becomes conditional. You won't just carry an ID. You will become one. An entry in a global database, constantly monitored, constantly assessed. The introduction of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, is the next step in this silent takeover. These are not cryptocurrencies in the traditional sense. They are programmable, trackable, and, more importantly, controllable by design. Governments could issue money that expires, restrict purchases by category, or even freeze accounts based on behavior. What sounds like efficiency quickly becomes a mechanism of enforcement. Your ability to buy, sell, or travel could be switched off in an instant. Social credit systems, long dismissed as dystopian fantasies, are no longer confined to science fiction or isolated regimes. Pilot versions are already embedded into ESG scoring, payment platforms, and public service access. Did you post something flagged as misinformation? Expect delays in your travel permissions. Did you fail to meet carbon targets? Your spending could be restricted. The algorithms decide, and there's no human face behind the denial, only code. These systems are being woven together quietly under the radar of mainstream concern. Each new app, policy, or smart upgrade is presented as convenience. But piece by piece, a global infrastructure of control is being built. And once all the pieces are in place, there will be no need for force. Compliance will be embedded into everyday life. The illusion of freedom will remain. But your choices will be predetermined, your autonomy simulated. Corporate giants, tech conglomerates, and central banks are the architects of this future. Their language is soft: inclusive finance, climate responsibility, digital transformation. But their reach is vast, and their interests are not public service, they're power consolidation. With digital IDs and CBDCs unified, dissent becomes economically unviable. Speaking out could cost you your job, your access, even your ability to participate in society. Censorship becomes financial and absolute. This is not a system being proposed. It is already underway. One update at a time. One policy at a time. All under the banner of progress. But ask yourself, when every aspect of your life is linked, scored, and conditional, are you still living freely, or are you simply functioning inside a program you never agreed to? What happens when the off switch isn't in your hands anymore? It's easy to dismiss the Agenda 2030 as a benign list of goals. Ending poverty, fighting climate change, promoting equality. But behind the curtain of good intentions, there are names, institutions, and forces that never appear in press releases. Quietly, they influence the direction of policies, funding, and technological development. The question isn't whether there's an agenda, but rather who wrote it, who funds it, and who stands to benefit once it's fulfilled. At the top of this invisible pyramid are the billion-dollar foundations: Gates, Rockefeller, Soros. They shape global discourse through philanthropy with strings attached. Their donations influence the WHO, UN bodies, and educational systems. Behind every recommendation is a network of stakeholders with private interests disguised as public good. These actors don't need to be elected. Their influence bypasses democracy. They answer to no one but themselves and the data they harvest. Then come the multinational think tanks and policy groups: the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome. Their members include heads of state, tech CEOs, bankers, and royalty. Their meetings are off limits to the public, yet their language appears in your city's laws and your child's textbooks. When they say, "You will own nothing and be happy," it isn't a suggestion, it's a projection. A blueprint. And it's already in motion. Multilateral institutions like the UN and IMF play the role of enforcers. Countries receive loans, but with conditions: align with climate metrics, adopt digital systems, restructure land use. Compliance ensures funding. Resistance leads to economic suffocation. These global entities aren't just offering guidance, they're buying obedience. Through incentives and penalties, national sovereignty becomes a formality. Governments sign, but they no longer decide. Corporations are not just tools, they're co-conspirators. Tech giants provide the infrastructure. Financial elites provide the capital. Media conglomerates craft the narrative. Each sector reinforces the other. The result is a self-sustaining ecosystem of control, where innovation serves surveillance and entertainment suppresses dissent. In this system, the illusion of choice is maintained, but the outcomes are pre-selected. The architects remain hidden, but their fingerprints are everywhere. So who's really behind the agenda? Not one man, not one group, but a constellation of unelected power centers, aligned in silence, moving in unison. They don't need to announce their intentions, because the world is already adjusting to them. By the time most awaken, the structure will be complete. And those who built it will remain unseen, protected by wealth, secrecy, and a global system that no longer answers to the people. For centuries, prophecies and ancient texts have foretold times of great upheaval, moments when the world as we know it would unravel, giving way to a new era. The chilling detail is how closely these predictions align with modern events. Wars, pandemics, economic collapse, and environmental disasters seem scripted, as if humanity is playing a role in a pre-written drama. Some claim the Agenda 2030 is not just a policy plan but part of this hidden script, an act in a larger cosmic narrative. From the cryptic visions of Nostradamus to the apocalyptic warnings in the Book of Revelation, history has offered warnings cloaked in metaphor. These texts speak of a great reset, a purging fire that will cleanse corruption and sin, but at a terrible cost. When viewed through the lens of today's global crises and sweeping political changes, these ancient prophecies take on an unsettling clarity. Are we witnessing their fulfillment or merely interpreting coincidences after the fact? The theory extends beyond coincidence. Some argue there are secret societies and elites who believe in these prophecies and actively work to fulfill them. Rituals, symbols, and coded language hint at an orchestrated timeline, where the collapse of old structures and the rise of new world orders are anticipated and welcomed by those in the shadows. The question is not whether the prophecy is true, but who is scripting it and why. The concept of free will becomes blurred in this context. Are humanity's choices genuinely our own, or are they influenced by invisible forces pushing events toward a predetermined conclusion? This raises dark philosophical questions about destiny, control, and resistance. If the future is already written, is rebellion an illusion? Or is it the spark that could change the narrative before the final act? As the world edges closer to what many call the end of an era, the lines between myth and reality begin to dissolve. The hidden script may be written in the actions of world leaders, the designs of global institutions, or even the coded messages embedded in mass media and technology. Each day brings a new chapter, each decision a potential turning point in this unfolding drama. In the end, we are left with a haunting question. Are we actors playing roles in a script penned by unseen hands, or authors of our own destiny? The shadows grow longer, and the silence deepens. What will the final act reveal? Only time holds the answer, and in that waiting, the true mystery remains. Agenda 2030 presents itself as a beacon of hope, but beneath its surface lies a labyrinth of secrets and unanswered questions. Are we witnessing a genuine effort to save our planet, or a carefully crafted plan for total control? The lines between salvation and domination blur in the shadows cast by powerful elites. What truths are being hidden from us? How far does this web of influence reach? As you reflect on these revelations, consider the role we all play in shaping the future. Is resistance still possible, or are we already trapped within this new order? Do you believe in this theory? Is Agenda 2030 a plan for salvation or control? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay informed as we uncover more hidden truths. The story is far from over, and the shadows hold many more secrets waiting to be revealed.